Hi, I'm Dave Kirkpatrick. Welcome to November and Beyond. If you've seen this show, you maybe know what we do. I share a lot of information. I share a lot of people's voices from around town. Today we have something a little bit different. I'm going to have a TV sit-down studio talk show with Randy Filiault. Randy is a councilor at large on the Keene City Council. He's also an election official here in Keene, and we're going to find out from him a lot of stuff we want to know about the election coming up, both locally and nationally. And we're also going to take a trip to Central Square. We're going to see Monadnock Progressive Alliance with the New Hampshire Sierra Club. This would be the Rally for Climate, Jobs, and Justice. This happened back in September. There were a lot of great voices from within our community talking about some big issues that we face in this country right now today. And that's going to be interesting. You'll hear a lot of people. You probably see some faces you know from the community. We're going to go ahead and get this rolling and enjoy the show. And here we are, everybody. Welcome back. I'm here today again. Like I said, we'd have Randy Filiault come and talk to us a little bit about the election coming up.
Yep.
I thought of you, Randy, because you're a Cheshire TV veteran.
I am.
I know you from City Council.
We just talked about that a decade ago.
Yeah. You've been doing shows here for a while.
A long time.
And I happen to recall you were an election official. I think that came up in some of our conversation at another time. And so I really wanted to talk to somebody about the election. And my wife was an election official in Antrim for a number of years. Antrim's a tiny little town. There's not that much going on there. There was a little collection of people I could chat with who have all sort of moved on. And I thought, well, maybe I could go look in the city of Keene where this program actually airs and find somebody who could tell us a little bit about what's going on in Keene and then maybe generally about the upcoming election and what people need to know. So tell us everything you know about elections.
You get about 15 seconds?
I don't believe that.
One of the great things about Keene is our elections are just handled so professionally. And that's to the credit of Patty Little, who's a city clerk for the city of Keene. She takes it very, very, very seriously.
As well, she should.
Right. And she's meticulous. She doesn't want any errors. Every year you'll read something where a couple years ago in Merrimack they had a major malfunction. You'll read in some cities they just have major meltdowns where they tried to close a couple of election places and put them in 2 instead of in 5 and then the lines are so long, people are waiting in lines for hours. You read about things other communities do, and Keene is like clockwork with Patty. It always goes so well, and people just get used to it. And that is completely 100%, and I know she won't take full credit for it, but it really is her office that keeps the elections in Keene just going smoothly year after year and without controversy.
And I don't doubt it. And thanks, Patty. Seriously,
absolutely.
That's wonderful work. I've never had the pleasure. Antrim is a tiny little town. I wake up some Tuesdays and I drive through town on my way to work, and I go, "Oh no, it's today." So that's one of my gripes is I people just getting the word out, and the people holding signs that lure me into the polls. They should have been there 3 days ago, saying, "Don't forget to vote on Tuesday."
Right.
But when I forget, I pull over in Keene. In Antrim. I get Kojak parking. I just pull right over and park in front of the town hall. And I go in and it takes me 10 minutes to vote. And I just go in and out. And it takes me 10 minutes because I'm not prepared and I have to read some of the questions maybe twice.
It doesn't take a lot longer in Keene. I mean, the last presidential election that I worked at obviously drew a little bit more interest than normal. But even with that, like you said, 10 minutes, 15 tops, you're in and out.
That's good
and most times in Keene, it's just a matter of couple of minutes, because even if there's some people in line, it moves very rapidly. And that's that's this due to the city clerk and of course all the volunteers that work at all the wards in Keene, the voting places. Keep it moving. So, but it's funny. People wait in line at a fast food restaurant for 10 minutes for a hamburger, but if they have to wait 10 minutes to vote, they're like, "Oh my God, look, you only have to do it once every other year or so." It's like, come on,
Well, there's the talk going on about we should make that the holiday.
Oh, absolutely.
Maybe give back Columbus Day and pick up Election Day as a holiday. I think that's a fantastic idea.
I agree. I think it should be moved to, even if it's not moved to a Saturday, I think moving it to a whole weekend, maybe Saturday, Sunday.
Yep.
The whole Election Day on a Tuesday, in my opinion, is archaic. Just like the electoral vote, in my opinion, is archaic. It goes way back because it worked then,
Yep.
and it doesn't necessarily mean that things that worked a couple centuries ago, work now. So I think it's something that we really need to look at, because I think my biggest argument with election now was that there was election fraud, and the whole commission was put together, and we found out there is no election fraud. I mean, there wasn't a minuscule number, but so small it wouldn't even register. My problem right now is the voter suppression, and that's huge. You read what's going on in other states, and it's a scary proposition what's going on out there.
Yeah. And that is a real problem, because, like you said, it's not just the onesie twosies. You can picture one or two people, I don't know, with multiple residences or something, who maybe can vote here or vote there, or somebody who forgot, or somebody who's just plain cheating and bad at it and gets caught, or whatever it might be. But the suppressing a whole region or a whole group or whatever, the tribal stuff, the Native Americans they gave them all a post office box and then said you need a street address to vote. I mean, that's wholesale.
Yeah, it was South Dakota.
Suppression. I mean, suppression's a kind of a nice way
That's
of saying
amazing. You have to have an
fraud.
ID, but the ID you don't have, and you can't get. Mm-hmm. And now they say it's so close to the election that even if you get the ID, it's too late.
Yep.
Because you've passed the deadline.
Sure, yeah. Or closing polling stations, usually in spread out communities or where there's not much money or whatever it might be. But just make it a little harder, make it take a little longer to get, certain people can't really.
I think sadly,
can't really do that,
that's going to be the headlines after Election Day. It's not just who won and who lost, is that the voter suppression is going to be widespread and rampant. And I think that's going to be the headline. I really do. And I'm hoping it's not, but based on what I've seen so far so early, I think that's going to be the problem.
I think that's something that we really should take a good, hard look at. And it's going to come to a point where, I think at this point we'd be gathering evidence and we'd be building our case, and it's, we're not going to know in December what went on. People are going to be looking at that for a good long time. And
then the problem with all of that is, if you find is voter suppression, which in my opinion is obvious already, and then you file a complaint and bring it to the courts, well, that's a whole argument about which judges go where. So I think we've got an issue ahead of us that's not going to go away anytime soon. And which brings us to why I really appreciate Keene and the effort we make to make sure everybody can get out to vote, that we don't suppress. It's like we try to make it as easy as we can to bring people in. Obviously, if you're not a resident of Keene, you're not going to vote in Keene.
Right.
But if you're a resident of Keene, we're going to make it as easy as possible that you can come in and cast a vote.
Yeah, and that's terrific. And for everybody, right? When you don't.
Absolutely. Of course, I only work with Keene.
Yeah.
But it should be like that everywhere. It should be made easier to vote, not more difficult.
Absolutely.
And the whole thing about voter fraud. Look, most people realize it's a felony. They're not going to risk going out and voting a second time and get nailed with a felony.
Yeah, no individual, no large mass of individuals is out there coordinatedly risking a felony to cast two votes.
No, it's just not going to happen.
So on that topic, do you see shenanigans at the polls? Do you ever see? I don't know. What
I don't. And when I work the polls for Keene, usually what I'm the person right at the front door. Basically, what it's called is a greeter.
Okay.
But what you're doing is, especially people coming in and voting for the first time, they don't know if they're in the right ward. They don't, even if they are in the right ward, they don't know what the whole procedure is. So basically, it's just a matter of, introducing yourself. Where do you need to go? I had probably last time maybe a dozen, probably more than a dozen, but at least a dozen people that didn't even live in Keene that thought they could vote in Keene. They had never voted before, and they said they were late getting home. Can I vote here?
Yep.
Because it was a national election.
I see.
They figured because it wasn't a local election, it was a national election, they could just show up someplace and vote. And so obviously, if they wanted to show me their ID, they could, or they'd just tell me where they lived. And, you would just direct them where to go. And other times, there were just some people that had moved, or they're just in the wrong ward. That's all. Yeah. And if somebody came in and they did not have a photo ID, then you direct them to the table where you have to sign a sworn affidavit that you're the person that you say you are. And if you're not, you're going to be nailed for a felony. So it went this last presidential election, it went smooth despite the fact that many people were voting for the first time on both sides.
Yep.
And,
I
so you
think
try to
that's-
keep it as smooth as possible.
That's an important thing. We want to get the new people voting, and that's kind of why I'm
Absolutely.
here asking you questions that I know the answer to a lot of these. I'm going to ask you anyways because I want you to,
I know some of them, maybe not all.
You know the
but-
trick. This is TV.
Yeah.
We cheat. So we just talked about the wards, and I actually have a couple of slides. I do have a slide showing the wards in Keene.
Sure. Yeah, so basically if you look at Keene, the way the wards start, if you walked into the middle of the common in downtown Keene,
Yep.
and you walked around in a circle, you hit all 5 wards.
I'm noticing that. Just
Because
looking at
that's
the
where it
slide,
starts
yeah.
from. Then it just spreads out into a pie of five pieces. And you can see it's a little uneven because we try to keep all 5 wards about the same population. So that's
see.
why they're not exact pieces of the pie.
I
But
see
population-wise, they're close.
I see that little jig, and I don't know what's
The
at the
jig and
top
the jag.
center. And I was going to say, I wrote gerrymandering on my little cue card, and I was like, nah. And I'm glad to hear that explanation. That sort of makes sense, keeping
Yeah.
things about the right size. So I have been, filming the politics in Keene for a long time. I have no idea which ward is which.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, the wards, if you walk downtown, you can all 5 wards by walking around in a circle around the common.
Yep.
But, I mean, one basically is, it starts from like the right side of Roxbury Street, and you figure that's 1.
Yep.
Then 2 heads up to the old north end, Upper Washington Street.
Okay, yep.
3, you're coming across around to Court Street. 4, you come around a little further, and then 5 kind of takes you down to the airport.
Interesting.
So
Yep.
basically, that's pretty much the piece of the pie that it is.
Yep.
So.
Very interesting, and I hear you guys in council. You say where you represent quite frequently, and it's really meant nothing to me. I can't imagine a college student trying to figure out.
Even though a councillor obviously represents a ward, his vote or her vote still
Yeah.
counts for the whole city. I happen to be a councillor that's at large, so which is the whole city. So
Yeah.
the difficulty of that is when you run for re-election, you have to canvass the whole city.
Sure.
Where if you run for a ward, which I did early in my city council,
Yeah.
it's you only have to go into that one little
Yeah.
1/5 of the city.
Yeah.
So that's the
So
difference.
I stole those slides. I borrowed those slides from the Keene City website. That was a great place to find info. There's a lot of voter info on the Keene City site. There's plenty of info online for people who are looking for it, but I thought I would do a little bit of the spoon feeding here today since we're here.
Well, once again, it's just making voting easier. The
Yep.
more you hear it, the more people that talk about it.
Yep.
Get out, vote.
Familiarity, yeah. You'll do something you're familiar with. The first time, you're like, well,
It's funny
hard to
'cause you're right.
sometimes take the leap.
The first time, sometimes people just get nervous.
Yep.
Man, there's nothing to be nervous about, especially in Keene. It's very relaxed. And at each poll, somebody like myself will be near the front door. And if you go in
Yep.
and you're not sure,
Yep.
we just casually talk and make sure you're in the right spot. And if
that's
you are,
terrific.
I'll walk somebody right through the procedure, right to the table they need to go to. Then the next person will take care of them. And so, all the way to where you finally cast your vote, it's really, really easy. Not intimidating at all. Very easy.
Yeah, and I observe that where I vote as well. They really go out of their way to make sure everything's on the up and up.
Exactly.
They're as polite as can be. Even when you're getting the bad news, you're not on the list and you need to go back and register somehow or whatever it might be. There's always somebody willing to help.
Yep.
I see so many of the community pillars at our polling station. There's always the police chief. There's always the town folks.
The people that volunteer for everything are the same people
The
you'll
volunteers.
see. You'll see at the
yeah,
elections.
The
right.
regular volunteers are there. So what else, what are common things I think that new voters might trip over otherwise?
Usually, it'll be somebody that's just moved to Keene and not sure about the ward.
Yep.
Sometimes they'll have been married and the name will have changed.
Oh, okay. Yep.
But usually it's a case of, the one that I see the most often is just they've moved and they're just in a different ward and they forgot.
Yeah.
Or because their neighbor was in one ward, they thought they were in the same ward, but sometimes you just live across the street from somebody and you're in a different ward.
Yeah. So yeah, especially the first time you move into a place.
Yeah.
And that's
So that's usually the case. Never really anything major. Like I said, there was some instances where people were from the wrong town
Yeah.
and just didn't know, just simply didn't know. But as far as seeing deliberate shenanigans or any problems at the polls, the only thing at all was at the last presidential election, you're not supposed to bring in campaign materials or
Oh, yes,
or
yeah,
advertising. And one person decided to push it a little bit by having their candidate's shirt on, and basically we're saying, no, you can't turn me around because I have my rights. But at the polling places, there are some rules, and one of the rules is you can't come in to the polling place and campaign for somebody.
Like,
you've got to stay 50 feet. 50
Sure.
feet.
So that's being called campaigning, basically at the polling location.
There's a certain area outside where you can campaign, and when you're within 50 feet of that front door, you stop campaigning. So that way people don't feel intimidated. Because sometimes, you get 150 people there standing with signs for their candidates. It can be a little bit intimidating, but we want it so once you get beyond that, you go inside. There's nobody twisting your arm.
Interesting.
Keeps it simple.
So that's for voters who can't dress up and campaign. We saw last time around, Clinton, I think, walked into the place and shook a few hands, and they said, "Hey, that's campaigning. You can't be doing that."
Yep. No, you can't. Even though good intent. A lot of people break laws with good intent.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I didn't mean to do that. So, but that was it. And that one person finally, when the policeman on duty said, it's time to go, or I'm going to have to give you a ride somewhere.
Yeah.
They turned and walked out. And honestly, all the years that I've worked campaigns, very few incidents. Once in a while, maybe, a couple of people get into a little bit of a jarring match in the parking lot about their candidates. But,
Well, that's what I was going to ask, too, because last time I held a sign in Antrim. I think I held Dan Weeks' sign most proudly. Just to show my stripe. I'm not proud. Sorry, Dan, I didn't mean it that way. But, there was some shouting. It was a contentious election, and not much. I didn't see any pushing fisticuffs, anything like that. But, there were a number of people driving by hollering things out the window. That was as rough as it got for us. But
it does, and I can tell you, as somebody who's obviously run multiple times for city council, you might go by a house with somebody that and you might see the opposing person's sign in their yard.
Yep.
And
sure, you gotta
do kind of grab your steering wheel a little bit,
and
grab the steering wheel a little tighter and drive by. But sometimes people are friends with multiple candidates. But once in a while at the polls, like you said, they might be thinking you're holding the wrong sign for the wrong candidate. But that's what elections are all about. I mean,
well, it really is.
If you disagree, the best thing to do is, instead of yelling, just go in and vote for the other person.
Go right in and vote. Yeah.
Huh.
Do you have any insights as to new registrations in town? Or would you be aware if there's, a significant bump in
I don't know the number. The word that I got a few days ago from City Hall was, yes, there's been a significant bump this year. And of course, there was a significant bump 2 years ago, too, because that was a very volatile presidential election. But it shows, if you're mad about who won, and especially if you didn't vote, you got to get out and vote. Typically, especially in an off presidential year election, turnout's around 20%, 21%. Well, sometimes people say, or 25% once in a while if it gets up there. But that's saying 75 to 80% didn't vote. And to me, that's just so totally unacceptable. How can... I guess it's just bred in me that it's an election day, you vote. It doesn't matter if it's a big election, a small election.
Yeah.
Only 2 people are running for dog catcher. If there's an election, you just show up and vote.
Absolutely.
So that's the best way to do it.
Sure.
Don't if everybody just put in their head, if there's an election, I vote, then you just automatically vote, rather than determining, is it a big enough election for me to show up at?
Do you hear any discussion about, I can do my online banking. I can transfer money, and I can pay credit cards and look at my mortgage and do all this stuff online, and it's secure. They know it's me. They know darn well it's me. And what about making polling electronic, or what about finding some other way to do it? We talked earlier just in the lobby about the suspicions around the absentee ballots, and are they really going to get there and that kind of thing. Even maybe extrapolating a little bit to say we kind of don't need the representatives so much anymore. You can poll people in an instant overnight. You can find out what Iowa's thinking.
It's interesting with a lot of those polls. Oh, we can kind of go all over the place. Polling's interesting because the old polling was done with landlines. 2 years ago, obviously, the polls were off. And a lot of that is because a lot of voters that have come forth now would never get a landline, and they've got their cell phone.
Yep.
And maybe the candidates don't have their cell phone number.
Sure.
So in my opinion, 2 years ago, that threw everything off. So polls now, where they can give you an idea of where you're at, man, and I think we learned 2 years ago, never trust a poll. Just never. And, I'm always skeptical about polling anyhow. Why even watch the poll? Because sometimes people say, well, my candidate's way ahead, I'm not going to vote, or my candidate's way behind, I'm not going to vote. Just get out there and do it.
I've tuned it out. As soon as I read a poll that says blue wave is coming, I read another poll that says blue wave is just collapsing. Yeah. So I've tuned it out because it's just.
And sometimes they'll play devil's advocate. Let's just say one party thinks they are way ahead. Well, sometimes they'll come out and just throw false news out there that, it looks tight, we're way behind. That's just to energize their base.
Yeah, I was going to say, if your party's way ahead, you might sit home that night.
You're like,
it's a lock.
We're way ahead.
So, it's not super helpful information.
No, it's not.
At this point, is it?
Just ignore polls.
Yeah.
Just ignore polls.
Yeah.
Just vote.
Very
good. I think, like you said, what we learned 2 years ago that, never sit on a poll.
And again, get out and vote. It's the most important thing. Just get out and do it. Make the time, an extra 15 minutes in the morning, on your way to work. Whatever it takes. I mean, mark the date, put the date in your iPhone so the buzzer goes off in the morning.
Speaking of the iPhones, and you just mentioned electronic voting because I just missed answering that question. There has been a lot of talk of that in individual states, nationally, individual. I'll tell you why that talk slowed down, and it has to do with the Russian hacking. That it slowed down a little bit because it's like, wait a second, if they can hack into some machines, can they hack into people's emails and vote? Maybe block their vote and vote for them. So I think electronically might be taking a little bit of a back seat for a while till we figure out how we could do it completely insecure.
That is very interesting.
Look at Facebook accounts; they're hacked every day.
Yep.
Every day you're reading 4 or 5 people that get hacked, and so. Yeah.
It seems to me, I don't know, if they can hack the Facebook accounts, how come they're not hacking our bank accounts and taking all my money?
My bank account, they're going to be sad.
Yeah, exactly. They're going to be like, that was good practice.
Oh, thank you. You paid a couple of bills for me.
There you go.
But, once again, with the voting, I mean, I guess I'm old school. I'm the type of person who likes to show up somewhere. I guess in a way now it's like shopping. If I look for a pair of boots or something, I like going to a store to buy the pair of boots. Mm-hmm. The younger generation like to buy their boots online. Yeah. So I guess I'm still old school. I like to show up at the polling place to vote. But
and a lot of folks I talk to are saying paper ballots. We need the paper ballots because you can go back to the box and count them, and you can watch them, and you can move them. I mean, I can't imagine doing that in New York City or LA.
Well, Keene does. Keene has a. It doesn't take any longer. Keene has a paper ballot, but the paper ballot is counted. I don't know if you've seen the Keene ballots. You go in, you just fill in the box, and it goes through a scanner. So the scanner counts it. Mm-hmm. So at the end of the day, when they're counting the votes, the machine gives you the number. The paper ballots are tied and secured, so you have backup. Mm-hmm. That's all it is.
That's what we're really talking about.
You've got paper backup. Yeah. These electronic voting machines with no paper backup, are you kidding me?
That have already been hacked and demonstrably.
Oh, absolutely.
Demonstrably, that's sketchy.
And that's where they had the problem with the Russian hacking.
Well, and they found that. They found that some of the machines had at least been
tampered with.
At least been hacked into. They're not sure what was done, but some of that has changed.
And the last thing you want to hear is, we're not sure.
Yep.
In an election, the words, we're not sure, that's never good. Whereas in Keene, if you say, we're not sure if Ward 2's voting machine was accurate, you're not sure, here's the paper ballots, let's count them by hand.
Yep.
And the paper backup. It amazes me that every state in the country doesn't have these.
Yeah.
And if they don't, you ask why.
Well, it's amazing to me that each state can be kind of just sort of different, maybe just have their own style. It seems to me that might be something that we all want to be on the same page with.
Like hanging chads. I mean, in today's day and age, there shouldn't be. It should be foolproof. It should be foolproof. Yeah. And I think Keene's done the best job of it. Yeah. Electronic ballot with paper backup.
Good. So. I like that. So what's the date again? Tell those folks.
Yeah, no. I think it's November 4th. But,
it's November 7th.
The 7th.
Don't forget.
Ignore what I just said.
Yeah, no.
No.
It's November 6th. We just want you to vote.
I just know it's a Tuesday.
It is a Tuesday.
I see that Tuesday show up and I go and vote.
You see all the people in the street with the signs and you go, oh, rats, that was today. All right, I'm going to be late. And you turn in and you vote. And that's just
and in Keene, it's 8 in the morning till 7.
Yep.
So.
Very good.
They're open, 11 hours. You have plenty of time to get there. Like I said, you're in and out in 10 minutes. And I don't know of any employer in Keene that will not say, yeah, you can have a few minutes to go vote. And they have to let you go anyhow if you're going to go vote. So if your employer says you can't leave, call me.
Yeah. Where are you going to vote? I just heard a voice from the sky. Speaking of voices from the sky, I didn't bring a timer with me. I wonder if a voice from the sky would tell me.
We have a minute left. Is that what he said?
So we ought to wrap this one up. And,
absolutely. If you're not sure where to vote, City Clerk's office, City Hall.
Yep.
Patty will tell you where to vote.
Cool. So Randy, thanks for coming on today
Absolutely.
to talk
Pleasure.
about this.
Great being back.
I hope you'll come back again and we can talk about what happened, in November. Maybe we can do that in December or January or something.
Well, right after Election Day, why don't I come back and we'll discuss it.
All right.
Sounds good.
And thanks for tuning in. And of course, thanks for remembering to vote on November 6th. Wherever you are, get out there, do it. Don't care what stripe, just get out there and vote and help somebody else vote as well.
Now, what day was that again?
November 6th. It's a Tuesday.
It is a Tuesday.
You'll see the people with the signs. There's going to be a tip. So that's, I think, going to be it. And thanks for joining us on November and beyond.
Vote, vote, vote.
So hold on there. The show's not over. The talk show portion is. But like I said, we're going to go downtown and we're going to join Monadnock Progressive Alliance and New Hampshire Sierra Club at their Rise for Climate, Jobs, and Justice rally, and we'll see what those folks have to say.
7 generations. This was done to empower our future generations and guarantee their continued survival. As we stand here today, it fills us with hope for the education of generations to come. Today, you begin on a new path ahead of you. I ask each of you to continue the ways of the original inhabitants of this land. Remember peace, righteousness, and to be compassionate. Continue to teach, to show love, and to empower and help each other. Katsiyo Leoni Katsinawas, Kanamit Waldamina Olito Gowangan. Great thanks, Creator, the great mystery. And we remember still, thanks to our relations. Oleoni, thank you.
Thank you, Chief Paul Filiault and Denise Filiault of the Kawasak Band of the Pennacook Abenaki people for your inspiring songs and lessons. We thank you for sharing your wisdom with us, and we hope that it will guide us in our relationship with the living world within which we inhabit. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the 2018 Rise for Climate, Jobs, and Justice rally, organized by the people. You're participating in one of the biggest events the world has ever seen for local action on climate change. Right now, thousands of Rise for Climate events are being held today in towns and cities across the world. 4 days before the start of the Global Climate Action Summit and 2 months before the midterm elections, we the people take to the streets to demand bold action on climate. I'm Peter Wadowik, the Clean Energy Team of the Monadnock Progressive Alliance, and I would like to introduce you to my fellow co-MC, Emily Manns of Mothers Out Front.
Good morning. To get started, we would like to share some heartfelt thank you to the Keene City Protocol Committee. Without their attention to detail and assistance, it would be much more difficult to hold a rally and an event of this nature. So I would also like to take a moment to thank the Monadnock Progressive Alliance and Sierra Club, who provided exceedingly excellent leadership, and of course Pat Martin and Kathy Corkery deserve a real round of applause for their leadership. I know I would be remiss without Pat and Kathy to also not mention the committee. So it's just been a great group effort, and we're so glad that, of course, a committee can't have an event without the people that come to see it. So you're a huge part of this, and we look forward to a great day. And finally, for those of you who are on social media, we would certainly appreciate you tweeting out today or live Facebooking us. So our tweet handles are hashtag Rise for Climate and hashtag Climate Jobs Justice.
It's getting really hot. I mean, really hot. The 5 warmest years ever recorded have happened since 2010. The 10 warmest years that have ever happened have happened since 1998. And the 20 warmest years ever recorded have happened since 1995. The time for complacency and controversy has passed us by. Climate change skepticism is a lost cause. Moving on with our daily life while blinded to the profound changes around us is no longer an option. Odd temperature extremes, erratic weather, too much rain, prolonged drought, increasingly frequent superstorms and mega fires. But we're called now, both individually and collectively, to act, and to act now. Alone and together, our integrity, our responsibility, and our morality are required as never before. Temperatures are rising and we're rising too.
Yeah.
Climate change-linked disasters cost over $300 billion in 2017 alone. Fed up we are with the climate action foot dragging and naysaying. It is clearly up to us to make the necessary changes happen. Please join this climate movement, this movement to change our social norms. What was once accepted and normal, that is massive fossil fuel extraction, consumption, and burning, is now unthinkable. Today we rise up and send a clear message to our politicians and leaders. We demand a fossil fuel world that puts people and justice and the living world before profit. Now let's hear from our diverse and esteemed group of speakers.
So we have a fabulous lineup of speakers for you today on the topic of climate, jobs, and justice. Our first speaker is Connor T. Hill. Connor is a local community activist who single-handedly organized a youth climate summit this summer in Keene. He is the president of the senior class at Keene High School and president of the Sierra Club Student Coalition chapter. Please join me in a warm welcome for Connor T. Hill.
My friends, we face a critical choice. It's not only the choice that will define the future of the planet, but a choice that will define what human decency looks like in the age of the climate crisis. We already know what is happening to our beautiful planet. This summer was a quest through our first experience of what an Earth abandoned by the human heart looks like. People being driven into the sea due to a raging inferno, deaths from heat waves, and growing inequality between those who can use their opulence to circumvent the climate crisis' impact on them and those trapped on the streets, faced with the worst conditions humanity has ever been forced to face. I'm speaking to a young man about the crisis at hand and explain how our dependency on fossil fuels and our addiction to burning, fracking, and building pipelines has created a blueprint for a reality that our communities are going to have to face if we're not careful. I also told him about the solutions and how we have the ability to switch to renewables now and make fossil fuels a thing of the past. He said, why? Why is this happening if we're able to fix this? Why? Saddest thing is, I didn't have an answer for him. Why? Seriously, ask yourself this. Why? Why are we deciding to continue on the track of planetary and self-destruction? Maybe it has something to do with our lack of leadership. The fact that we are led by someone who continuously attacks the press and calls it the enemy of the people, and who derides science instead of empowers it. Listen, we really have to take this seriously. The press, scientists, truth tellers, they are not the enemy of the people. Exxon, Charles and David Koch, and BP are the enemies of the people, not the press. Give me a break. Eric Haltis wrote in an article in Grist about how every action has meaning in the age of the climate crisis. We have to take his advice. We can't despair. We have to embrace our responsibility to mature as a society and combat climate change with our hopes, our fears, our laughter, and our art. We all must roll up our sleeves and mobilize each and every day to demand justice for our children and our communities. It's time we take care of one another. The future is bright, folks. The future is bright. And the path to that future is lit not only by the power of solar panels and wind turbines, but by the light of the human heart. Thank you very much.
So I know you all are there thinking, what can I do to support this young person? How can I help remove the barriers that he faces, that we all face, to a climate future that is livable and for his lifetime as well as ours and his peers and all the generations. Thank you so much, Connor. All right. Okay, our second speaker is Dan Weeks. Dan is, a homegrown Monadnock champion of local democracy and solar development. During the day, he is the Director of Market Development of Revision Energy. Welcome, Dan Weeks.
Good morning. Thank you so much to the organizers. It's an honor to be here with all you today. We heard some Native American wisdom, thank you, Chief, to start this program off. And I wanted to add a couple sayings, favorite sayings of my own from our Native American ancestors who came here long before my ancestors came as undocumented immigrants in the 1600s. The frog does not drink up the pond in which he lives. Treat the earth well. It was not given to you by your parents. It was loaned to you by your children. Thank you. Now, 2 years ago, friends, we went to the polls, and I won't ask you whether you voted Democrat or Republican. Frankly, I don't so much care, but I will ask you this. Did you vote for the silencing of science in our government? I didn't think so. Did you vote for the evisceration of the Environmental Protection Agency from its core mission? No! Did you vote to make one of the chief executives of the chief polluter in the world, ExxonMobil, our former Secretary of State, our chief diplomat? No! Did you vote to roll back the Clean Power Plan, to reopen old coal mines, to lower fuel efficiency standards for our cars? Did you vote to deepen the swamp in Washington and let big money from big oil and big gas and big coal flood our democracy yet again? No. I didn't think so. Well, if your answer, like mine, was no, then it is time we vote again. in 2 months this November, but not just in November. Let me explain. So I'm an old New Hampshire boy, proud to be 12 generations in this state. And I feel pretty secure here in New Hampshire. My wife, a new immigrant from South Africa, not always the same, and she's helped me to see the world a bit beyond our shores. You know, as our climate warms, New Hampshire is not that bad of a place to be for now, but there are many places around the world where we are seeing the effects day by day in ways that are destroying human lives. In southern Africa, for instance, where we spend as much time as we can and live together a few years ago, according to the Climate Change Vulnerability Index, 7 of the 10 countries most at risk for climate change are in Africa. The incidence of weather-related disasters has doubled in the last 25 years. Some 12 million people in East Africa recently experienced the worst food crisis of the 21st century so far, and it'll only get worse. That's the result of droughts and heat stresses. We're seeing a rate of desertification that every day an area the size of Detroit or Philadelphia converts from once fertile land to desert. The UN is predicting that access to water may well be the single greatest source of conflict in the 21st century. And regions close to the equator are becoming literally unfit for human inhabitants as a precursor to what we will see more and more across this earth. While 1 in 4 people in sub-Saharan Africa are currently undernourished, largely as a result of climate change, our government is running in the other direction. Now, call me greedy, but I want for my 2 little kids at home here in New Hampshire, I want them to be able to tap a maple tree when they get a little bit older and to find shade under a tree in a hot South African sun. I want them to revel in snow, the snow of our own White Mountains, and to see those glaciers atop Mount Kilimanjaro. I want them to enjoy what should never be a luxury, but a basic human good: clean water, food that's safe to eat, a habitable planet Earth. And someday, when they may be ready to start a family, I don't want them to wonder if this gorgeous blue-green marble, this planet Earth of ours, will still support human life. Those are the questions we grapple with today. So in 10 or 20 years, will I tell my little kids, sorry, sorry that we just couldn't help ourselves. We just couldn't wean ourselves off of our addiction to fossil fuels emitted at a rate of 2.5 million pounds per second today. Sorry we couldn't take responsibility in our individual lives. Just too hard to cut our consumption, to buy local, sustainable foods, to insulate our homes, to drive a more efficient, even a solar-powered electric car, to use efficient appliances. It was just too hard. Sorry we didn't take those steps we could have taken when we had the chance to save this one and only planet we call home. Or will I tell my kids, will we tell our kids and grandkids that in the year 2018, when atmospheric carbon dioxide reached 410 parts per million, the highest it's ever been since human life began, when a coal-crazy, climate-denying, science-silencing president took us in the wrong direction, will I say that in this year 2018, we stood up. Yes, we voted come November and come Tuesday, but we didn't just wait until election day, we voted with our dollars. We started collectively en masse, as many of you individually have already done, but en masse as a society. In the year 2018, we started to turn this corner and vote with our dollars against the corruption of fossil fuel money in politics and against the corruption of fossil fuels in our own lives. We chose to change our lifestyles. When we owned our roofs, we chose to fill those roofs with solar panels. We chose to come together collectively in community solar farms and to demand of our politicians offshore wind and local hydro and clean energy of every kind. We came together in communities like Keene, leading the way in New Hampshire, which has already decided they're going to fill city roofs with solar panels, as nonprofits in the community are doing, as Keene Housing here is doing. And we demanded more and more of that on every nonprofit roof, on every school and college roof. We changed the tune. Friends, we can do this. Many of you are doing it already. You've been leading the way for years. Let's make this a social movement in our community, in Keene, in the Monadnock area, across our state, across our country, because the stakes are just too high. And let me close with a few more words that inspire me from a favorite poem of mine by Christopher Fry, called Asleep with Prisoners. He said, "Thank God our time is now, when wrong comes up to face us everywhere, never to leave us till we take the longest stride of soul man ever took." Will we take that stride together, friends? Will we change our tune and lead our society in a sustainable direction? Let's do it together. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dan, for your clear and compelling argument for more climate action in our fair state. Businesses like Revision are ground zero for climate action and local job creation. Well done. Our next speaker is Beth Wayland. Beth is the Chief Steward of the United Electrical, Radio, and Machine Workers Union, Local 228. Renewable energy provides opportunities for new local jobs, and we are grateful for Beth to be here to help us understand the labor and job perspective in climate action and justice. Beth Wayland.
Very short. Here I go. Can you hear me? Hi, it's nice to be in Keene. I went to school here for 2 years, way back when, 70s. I've lived in different places, but I'm glad to have returned to Seacoast, New Hampshire, to my roots. Good morning, everyone. I work at the National Visa Center in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. We're affiliated with the Department of State. And we finally voted in a union about 2 years ago, so that was good. They hadn't had raises in 8 years. All right, the science, folks, is irrefutable. Human activity is causing the planet to warm at an alarming rate. Global warming is causing stronger storms, more flooding, longer heat waves. It was quite a summer here in New England, wasn't it? I just got back from Huntington Beach, and they had a nice, cool 80-degree dry thing going on. It was great to be out there in California. More and more of the Earth's inhabitants are becoming climate refugees. If we continue on the present trajectory, by the year 2015, it's estimated that 600 million people will be climate refugees. The UN's Paris Climate Agreement was adopted in 2015, signed into law by 195 nations, including the United States. Its purpose? To hold the increase in the global average temperature well below 2 degrees Celsius by curbing greenhouse gas emissions and advancing sustainable development. One of Donald Trump's first acts as president was to get us out of the Paris Climate Accords, jeopardizing the future of our planet. He's filled the cabinet with climate change deniers. EPA head Scott Pruitt has been busily at work attempting to roll back every major accomplishment in the field of environmentalism since the 1970s. Energy profiteers are busily attempting to construct more and more pipelines to strip the Earth of the last of its unrenewable energy resources. Pipelines have extensive negative health and safety impacts due to leakage and also to intentional venting of natural gas on all of the communities in their path. These tend to be African American, indigenous communities, and low-income communities. The landowners along pipelines can't grow food. They have no control of their land or productivity, and yet they have to keep paying taxes on that land that's being destroyed. UE, as a union, rejects the false choice between jobs and the environment. UE is committed to educating its members about climate change and creative solutions that reduce carbon output while creating good union jobs. And about environmental justice struggles for clean and safe drinking water in all of our communities and workplaces, here and throughout the world for that matter. We also urge the environmental movement to incorporate just transition into their platforms and to push for solutions that curb the power of corporations and empower us, the people who work the jobs. We fully support seeking renewable alternatives to environmentally destructive methods of energy production and distribution. We support legislation that would mandate massive investments at the state and local levels and by U.S. corporations to convert to a clean energy economy and create millions of good jobs in the process. And we're missing the mark in the United States. We could be doing this now. We support worker-oriented efforts to address climate change, such as the Trade Unions for Energy Democracy, the Labor Network for Sustainability, the Blue-Green Alliance, and the Just Transition Alliance. We reaffirm the proposal that UE made back in the 1970s for public ownership of the energy industry in order to end price gouging and to preserve our environment. UE also supports the building of alliances in general with environmental and community organizations. That's why we're here today. And we support bans on oil and gas exploration and drilling off the Atlantic coast. Folks, you know, we've got one number one priority. There are so many good causes. I've spent my life until working again for the U.S. government here. I've spent my lifetime really in nonprofit organizations. And we all have a common goal about so many wonderful issues, but you know what? The environment's number one, because if we don't save this freaking planet, none of the rest of it matters, and we've got to do this, folks.
I'm just going to go on to our next speaker. Everybody's hitting it out of the ballpark. Thank you so much, Beth. Our next speaker is Bob King, much appreciated local conservationist and president of Ashlot River Hydro Incorporated. Bob.
Thank you, Emily, and thank you, everybody. Can I get this a little higher? Let's do that. Well, I don't know if I can be nearly as inspirational as the preceding speakers, but I'll do my best. I'm just a lowly engineer, so I'm going to talk to you about the nuts and bolts of the situation. But let me start by telling you my family and I were just in California backpacking for a couple of weeks in the Sierra Nevada mountains. Thank you, Sierra Club, for protecting that beautiful area. But we were reminded that in California they've suffered through 5 years of drought, followed by a year of record precipitation and lethal mudslides, followed, of course, this year by record-breaking wildfires. And everyone who cares to listen knows that these are all exacerbated by climate change. And what has the state of California, the 5th largest economy in the world, done about this? They took their goals for 100% renewable, zero carbon energy, and they advanced those goals. They said, we got to get this done sooner, okay? And so if California can do it, I think New England can do it, New Hampshire can do it, Keene can do it, 100% renewables. That's what we're after. Another thing I was reminded of in the beautiful Sierra Nevada mountains was that California's original electrical system was all based on small hydro up in the mountains. Similarly, in New Hampshire and in Keene in particular, the electrical system was all hydro-powered. And in 1915, Keene's electric railways, the lights, everything was powered by hydro. Electricity was taking off at the time, and Keene Gas and Electric wandered over to Marlboro and found a beautiful site for what would be the biggest power plant in the county, and it more than doubled the capacity and really sort of brought Keene into the electrical age. Again, 100% hydro, 100% clean, 100% local. That plant was in Marlboro. It's called Minnewawa, and I now own it today. It's a beautiful little site. And thanks to Molly Kelly, does anybody know Molly? Thanks to Molly Kelly, who spearheaded the passage of group net metering 5 years ago, we are allowed to take the energy from Minnewawa Hydro right there in Marlboro and sell it locally. We sell it to the town of Marlboro, we sell it to Keene Ice, we would like to sell it to Keene, we sell it to school districts as far away as Derry. So that's group net metering, and I'm going to talk to you a little more about that in a minute. We also own some hydro in Winchester, bringing our total in Western Chester County to about 3,000 kilowatts of hydropower. Now, just to put that in perspective, that's about half of Keene's peak demand. And solar installed up to date in the area is about 500 kilowatts. So I say that not to show how powerful the hydro stations are, but to challenge my solar friends, Dan Weeks, everyone else, Solar Source, to ramp it up. Let's have solar take over hydro within 5 years. Let's have every flat roof in Keene covered with solar panels in 5 years, okay? That's what we need if we're really going to reach this 100% goal. So there is still a little bit of hydropower that could be tapped in Western Cheshire County. Obviously, we want to leave our remaining wild rivers wild. Nonetheless, there are flood control dams, there are other abandoned mill sites. You know, we could milk probably another 1,500 kilowatts out of local hydro, which would make a difference. Even better, in fact, the best resource to make that hydro and all the solar we're going to see, to have it be a bigger part of the pie, is to shrink the pie by using negawatts. Who knows what negawatts are? That's with an N as in Nancy, negawatts. Negawatts is where we shrink our entire electrical pie through conservation and efficiency, and maybe take the United States, the highest usage per capita, down to the level of Germany, which I think is 1/4 of what we use per capita. So that's really what we need to do. So folks, how do we get there? How do we get all that solar on roofs in the next 5 years? Has anybody heard of SB 446? Yes! Okay, I'm glad nobody stole my thunder ahead of me on this. There was a huge rally in Concord 2 days ago in support of SB 446 and SB 365, which I realize isn't quite as popular. But 446 will increase the net metering size limit from 1 megawatt to 5 megawatts, and it'll really take New Hampshire into the modern age, sort of up there with Massachusetts and California as far as large-scale deployment of medium-sized solar farms. And we've absolutely got to pass this bill. It was passed in the House and Senate several months ago through a strong bipartisan majority, and then our wonderful governor vetoed it. So, well, why was that? Well, in part because he's advised by Greg Moore of Americans for Prosperity. Greg Moore's former boss, Bill O'Brien, our wonderful former Speaker of the House, who is the chief lobbyist for Edison Electric, which represents the large utilities, and of course Michael Sununu, who works for Eversource, and everybody else who will pay him enough. All these guys are advising Chris Sununu, against net metering. So Chris Sununu is living in the dark ages, and this is why we need to override the veto of 446. The vote is next Thursday. What we need everybody to do, here's the nuts and bolts, is call every legislator particularly in the House. The Senate's in pretty good shape. and encourage them to carpool, get in a car with their other legislator friends, drive to Concord, because there's really no incentive for them to go there other than the incredible importance of overriding 446. So again, call everybody you know who's a legislator, get them up to Concord next Thursday. In particular, Rockingham and Hillsborough counties, if you have connections there, those are the weakest counties right now. Cheshire County's in pretty good shape. So that's what we need you to do if we want New Hampshire to have a solar future. Let's see, I've probably taken my allotted 3 minutes. Oh my goodness sakes. Thank you so much, everybody. Let's override that veto.
All right, thank you, Bob, for the nuts and bolts of the solar override and distributed resources in New Hampshire. Our next speaker is Phil Suter. Phil is the president of the Greater Keene Chamber of Commerce, which represents hundreds of local and regional businesses and jobs. Phil.
Thank you, Emily. Before I get started here, I want to follow your instructions about tweeting, so I'm going to do it from this angle. So if everybody waves or whatever, there you go. Okay, that'll be a different perspective. I want to thank everybody for who's been involved in organizing the event today. It's very heartening on a Saturday in September to see this many people come out on these topics. They're important issues and themes. Whether we act or whether we don't act, they define us. So the fact that everybody's here is a good sign. I'm one who lives and works in the Monadnock region. And yes, I'm a person who works with the business community, quote unquote business community, every day. That's a little bit of a different perspective than you may hear from others here today and otherwise. But I'd like to suggest 3 points to think about with respect to the business community and these topics. First, many in the business community care deeply about these issues, and perhaps nowhere more than in the Monadnock region, where we are thoughtful and collaborative about our future. Second, there are already many examples of businesses in the region that are engaged on these issues, whether through their business practices or in public policy discussions, debates, and action. Whether it's at the county or municipal level, City of Keene or Town of Peterborough and other towns are good examples in this region, or in the actions of such companies as Filtrene, Badger, Green Energy Options, Revision Energy, and many, many more. Third, change is hard. Change is challenging, and it takes time. But we know it can happen because it's happened before. Think back to the first Earth Day, decades ago. The result of that event, that single day, yielded tangible results over many years. Some of those results are in jeopardy now, but I know that it can happen again. But we need to continue to act and continue to tell our stories. This can be our brand as a region, as a city, and as a state. I'd like to just mention one and close with one thought about one regional initiative. A number of years ago, Vermont Yankee announced that it was closing its plant not too far from here. In strict economic terms, the closure had some significant negative impacts, including the loss of jobs in our part of New Hampshire as well as in Vermont and Massachusetts. But out of that came an unprecedented tri-state initiative called the Ecovation Hub, which asked the simple question of whether those jobs might be replaced by jobs in a regional clean economy. Could our part of the world be a leader in clean economy innovation, economic growth, and job creation? Could we become a kind of Silicon Valley for clean energy activity? It may be too early to say if that will happen, but it's not too early to say that it's possible. Right. So thank you, and remember the theme of today's event is to change everything, we need everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Phil, for bringing us the perspective of the business community here in Keene, and it's such good news that you're providing so much leadership on climate, jobs, and justice here in this region. Our next speaker is Matt Bacon. Matt is a recent Keene State graduate and now the recycling coordinator at Keene State College. Welcome, Matt.
Morning, everybody. Thanks a whole bunch for having me speak today and giving me a little bit of your time. Firstly, I just wanted to extend a greeting from our president, Melinda Treadwell, who just unfortunately wasn't able to attend today. Excuse me, sorry. Keene State is a long-standing and important institution in the Monadnock region, and we know that our actions carry far beyond our walls. The Office of Sustainability has been working hard not only to teach our students how to sleep, eat, and breathe sustainability, but also to actively make change to our institution and set an example on how the future should look for generations moving forward. We're a small team over at Keene State, and though we haven't made it perfect just yet, we've achieved some major successes and have just implemented a suite of goals for the future. So let me start with these goals and then explain what we're doing to reach them. On Earth Day of this year, our president announced to the public a suite of cabinet-endorsed goals ranging from waste reduction to energy use that our office had proposed and been working on with campus over the course of the academic year. Our campus administration approved and endorsed these goals, making sustainability a major priority, and Keene State is committed to reaching them. First of all, we plan to reduce our greenhouse gas reduction by 50% by 2020, and then we plan to achieve carbon neutrality by 2050. But how do we do that? We need to maximize our energy efficiency on campus. Firstly, we will have 50% of our campus powered by renewable energy by 2030, and 100% of campus powered by renewables by 2030. And finally, we will have a landfill diversion rate of 50% by 2020, and our campus will be zero waste by 2030. Yes, we know these goals are both far-reaching in scope and period, but we have laid out the framework for campus to achieve them and have already making serious strides to their completion. To highlight some of these ways, firstly, Keene State has officially converted all of our number 6 oil burning heats to a product called LR100. Made by a company called Lifecycle Renewables, this is not a biodiesel, which is chemically processed, but actually it is an entirely recycled waste vegetable oil product that's been put through filtration over and over again until it's clean enough to burn. This oil is so clean, in fact, that it has actually kept the boilers inside of Keene State's heat plant clear of the gunky buildup caused by burning regular heating oils, and it's alleviating respiratory irritations for those working in the heat plant. This transition doesn't cover all of campus. Some buildings are heated by alternative measures, but this transition covers about 80% of our heat load right now, and is a huge step in our heat reduction goal. Wow. Another example. This past December, after over a year of pulling together all parts of campus leadership to support the program and negotiating both contracts and funding for the project, Keene State finally implemented a fully expanded composting program at our dining commons. Keene State prior to this had been composting only our vegetable kitchen waste, but through a partnership formed with the Windham County Solid Waste District in Vermont, we can now compost all of our organic waste from the dining commons. Windham then turns it into Brattleboro compost and sells it back to local farmers and gardeners. Our composting program will be expanding across the rest of campus throughout this academic year, which again will greatly increase our diversion rate and is a first major step towards zero waste on campus. In academics, we have been working to show our students the college's commitment to a sustainable future as well. Alongside announcing both the President and Cabinet endorsed goals in April, the campus has introduced both a sustainability college-wide learning outcome and a brand new sustainability minor to coincide with our existing environmental science major. Keene State has college-wide learning outcomes to direct the path of study for the students, so that regardless of your focus of study or your major, you will leave the college with a set of values and skills that overarch beyond what your studies have been. The Sustainability Office has gotten groups from all over campus to give us input on this outcome, getting a snapshot of what the campus valued in sustainability and then vetted it with a committee made of representatives from all departments. We understand that sustainability is an effort of the whole, not just the parts. We wanted the writing of this to be an example of community-oriented thinking and work. So, the college thusly commits itself to Keene State College students will explore their place in interconnected natural and human systems, evaluate the personal, social, and environmental impacts of their choices, and apply their knowledge and skills for building a just, resilient, and thriving world. So to conclude, as I hope I've made it clear today, we at Keene State College, moving forward, plan to continue to be a sustainable and economic partner with the Monadnock region, and we want to continue our collaboration with businesses and institutions in the area. Through our actions administratively, our physical changes to the institution and protocols that have been in place, and focusing academically on a sustainable future, we hope to ensure a better world for generations to come. Keene State aims to be a model of sustainability for institutions in the area, and we are creating an educated and prepared workforce that will enter the greater Monadnock region to extend that influence further when our students leave our campus on graduation day. We hope you're proud, we are proud to be part of this great part of New Hampshire, and much like our past, Keene State's future here working with the community is sure to be a great one. So thank you all very much, and I hope you have a great rest of the day.
Thank you, Matt, for highlighting how having goals and a plan to reduce consumption and waste is vital to addressing climate warming. So our next speaker is Julie Mudd. Julie is attended Keene State College, and she has a varied career, but now she's a field energy advisor for Tesla. And I just want to say that when I need to, a positive person to, an attitude to talk about the future, then one of my people to reach out to is Julie. So here you go, Julie.
Thank you, Emily. What a great turnout. What a bunch of beautiful people. Give yourselves a round of applause. Thank you for coming. Thank you for caring, because if we don't, we don't. So I work for Tesla. I'm excited to work for Tesla, because initially when we started our foray into the industry, it was about transportation. The goal was to accelerate the world's transition to sustainable transportation. We've done this. We've now given you a number of different vehicles, whether we're looking for the luxury option, whether you're looking for your A to B travel vehicle. We have it now. Now that we've focused our attention there, we've been able to tirelessly work to change our mission statement, which has now become accelerating the world's transition to sustainable energy. Let's power our own homes from our rooftops. Let's power our neighborhood with net metering. Capping net metering will harm our neighborhoods. One person with a Tesla ecosystem. That's solar panels on the roof, we generate our own power. Now we have a battery that allows you to store it. You can charge your vehicle off of your sustainable energy. Do you have an excess of solar power that's coming to your rooftop? Let it feed back out to the grid and feed your neighborhood. The sustainability movement is real, it's now, and it's attainable. Make your way back to the ice cream social, touch the solar panels, see what they look like, get your hands on things. Sit in our Tesla Model X. It's a really incredible vehicle. You'll see it, it's got falcon wing doors that open right up. Please come down and check us out. Ask questions about sustainability. Let us help you feed your neighborhood with solar power. Thank you guys, thank you for coming out.
Thank you, Julie. Our final presenter is Reverend Elsa Worth. Reverend Worth is the priest at St. James Episcopal Church in Keene, and she will share a spiritual perspective.
Hear the ancient words of the psalmist. When I look at your heavens, the work of your fingers, the moon and the stars that you have established, what are human beings that you are mindful of them? Mortals that you care for them. You know, since forever, human beings have pondered the meaning of life while gazing up at the stars and planets, taking in a sunset or gazing at a beautiful mountain view. The vastness and the mystery of where we have come from and where we are going and just who we are fuel deep theological curiosity. But the depth of God is so deep that the more we discover about ourselves and the world, the more questions we uncover. And the deeper we go into the mysteries of life, the more we discover ever deeper mystery. I'm here today to speak of the spiritual beauty of creation, of the peace we all have experienced in nature, the laughter of children, the love between friends and family, and in the midst of loving, respectful, and caring community. And I'm also here to lament a long spiritual practice, the damage to creation that has been caused by our wasteful and unspiritual disrespect of nature, children, persons, and community, which is none other than our wasteful and unspiritual disrespect of God. Rather than taking our humble place within God's creation, we have too often chosen to compete with nature, greedily wanting to own more of God's goodness for ourselves. We strip mine the earth's resources, push back rainforests, pave over the earth, and waste, burn, and dump without any thought for our children, let alone our children's children's children. And we continue to use and overuse fuels and technologies that we know are damaging our earth and our future, choosing profits above people, choosing profits above children, choosing profits over God. Climate change presents us with far more than just a tricky political issue. We, as citizens of this earth, have nothing less than a moral obligation to change everything we have in our power to change and to demand action of our political and economic leaders. My prayer is that we of self-built profit centers, self-built fortresses, self-built cities, resolve to find a way back into more right relationship with creation and one another, and to obey God's call to act toward the vision described so beautifully in the poetry of the book of Revelation, the vision of a new city of God, through which the river of water, the water of life flows, bright as crystal, cool, clear, sparkling water. On either side of that river is the tree of life with 12 kinds of fruit, producing fruit abundantly each month, with leaves that are for the healing of the nations. May those healing leaves rustle and awaken and move us, God, that we may turn our faces toward the healing of the nations, toward the healing of our world. This I pray. I invite you to pray with me, along with doing everything you can and voting in a few weeks.
Thank you, Reverend Worth, for that moving presentation. We have one last young speaker from Stonyfield. This is Bree Knapp.
Hello, Keene. I'm Bree, and I'm here today representing Stonyfield Yogurt. Stonyfield thanks you for coming out to this inspiring rally. Today, you and I join thousands of people across our country and around the world who are speaking up for our future and our children's future. From our beginnings, 35 years ago in nearby Wilton, New Hampshire, Stonyfield has always stood for something more than yogurt. Healthy food, healthy people, and a healthy planet. We actively advocate on the state and federal level for measures that promote clean energy and fight climate change. We've joined with nearly 3,500 organizations in the We Are Still In movement to commit to still moving forward fighting climate change. We view the supermarket as our voting booth, and we work hard every single day for your votes. Now, we also hope to inspire people to get into the voting booth this November. Earlier this year, we launched our Make Earth Cool Again campaign to encourage people to get out and vote for the environment in the 2018 midterm elections. Every seat in the U.S. House of Representatives is up for grabs, as well as 1/3 of the U.S. Senate. We have the chance to direct our future and make sure we have leaders who will stand up for the environment and build a better world for our children. There is so much more to do, but we are inspired by so many people, communities, businesses, and organizations rising up and taking action. The challenge is huge, but the solutions can be built from a million smaller steps. Please stop by our booth today to have free yogurt, and we are giving away these awesome Make Earth Cool Again hats. So thank you for coming out, and I hope to see you at our booth.
Okay, thank you, Bree, for bringing ice cream to our event and standing up for climate, jobs, and justice. Thank you.
Big hand for our speakers, please. There were some impressive presentations, very informative. Ladies and gentlemen, today we rise up. Today we turn up the heat. Today we get vocal about climate action. Today we get active about climate change. This rally is about you and me, all of us, we the people, taking action. The best activist efforts of everyone here are now called upon. Stand up, be counted, rise out of your comfort zone. On the backside of the speakers program, which I hope many of you have, there's a blank space. We sincerely ask that each and every one of you pencil in an action you might take today. This is our simple ask. Please take an action today in defense of climate, jobs, and justice. And to help you out, I want to point out that there'll be plenty of information tables over Railroad Square with lots of ideas. But Emily and I are going to quickly go through a few right now that you might fill in that blank with.
Number 1, get to know your local and state legislators. Today you can go to the League of Women Voters table in Railroad Square to find out your reps and their contact information. Together, our voices make an impact.
The shift away from fossil fuels is already happening in New Hampshire. Saving money, lowering costs to taxpayers, improving the environment, bringing jobs. There's 4 towns and cities in New Hampshire, that's Hanover, Concord, Plainfield, and Cornish, already formally committed to the Ready for 100% energy campaign goals. They've resolved that 100% of their electricity will come from renewable energy by 2030, and 100% of their heating and transportation energy needs will come from renewables by 2050. Keene can do this too. Keene will do this too. Please visit the Monadnock Progressive Alliance Clean Energy Table. We have a petition. We're gathering petitions from the citizens of Keene and the surrounding areas. We're going to be speaking with the City Council in Keene about a resolution sometime in the near future.
Stand up against new fossil infrastructure, including the Granite Bridge gas pipeline. Raise local awareness, get organized, learn about the issues of new fossil infrastructure that will take us 50 years and more into the future dependent on fossil fuels. Visit the Echo Action Table today or Mothers Out Front for information and to sign up to join the fight against new fossil infrastructure. Override the governor's veto of Senate Bill 446. That's the one Bob King talked about. If you need more information, there's lots of information over at Railroad Square today. The vote is this Thursday, September 13th. So if you can take action today, if you can contact your legislators today, this is perfect timing. Please do that.
Dear friends, please remember the personal face of climate change. Have compassion and support for climate refugees. Remember Puerto Rico, suffering with almost 3,000 American deaths resulting from Hurricane Maria. Tens of thousands of displaced Puerto Rican storm victims, American citizens, have relocated to New England and the rest of the mainland. Remember the victims, too, of Hurricane Irma, Harvey, Sandy, Irene, Katrina, and on and on. Don't forget the thousands of people displaced by Western megafires and the many other natural disasters increasingly linked to climate change. If you were lucky enough to have an investment portfolio, please consider divesting from fossil fuels. We cannot afford to burn the known coal, oil, and gas reserves just because of business as usual. Fossil fuel companies are primed to act contrary to our public interest and contrary to common sense climate change. Fossil fuel companies are invested in extracting and burning the sanctioned carbon source. Figure out how to divest your money now.
One of our first actions is to reduce consumption and waste, and you can do that by investing in an energy audit on your house. For $100 or so, get an expert to evaluate your energy savings. You will save money, and we will all, if we do it all, we will all save the planet.
Vote. Vote at every opportunity, and get out the vote. Vote for candidates who refuse donations from oil, coal, and gas interests and who take the fossil fuel-free pledge. NoFossilFuelMoney.org. Vote for candidates with a coherent renewable energy strategy. Encourage friends and family and neighbors and citizens to join you and rise up and vote.
Join a climate, energy, or social activist group. Of course, check them out at Railroad Square today. Introduce yourself, ask some questions. Organizing together makes people power.
Please attend the sister events for climate action here in Keene. September 12th at 7 p.m., the film Reinventing Power, America's Renewable Energy Boom, will be shown in the Centennial Room at the Keene State College Alumni Center, which is right down Main Street here. That's Wednesday, September 12th. September 15th, next weekend, the Electric Vehicle Expo will be held at Keene Ice from 12 to 4. Come and see the future of transportation. On October 20th, there's a big peace rally across the country, and including here at Keene, organized by Cindy Sheehan. And then finally, New Hampshire Peace Action Fall Fundraiser, Saturday, October 6th, from 5 to 8. For more information, newhampshirepeaceaction.org. On behalf of the many organizers and volunteers, I really, really thank you for your participation today and for your heartfelt climate, job, and justice actions.
And I do want to remind you again, get out and vote. Tuesday, November 6th is the date. It's really important that everybody vote. Everybody, any stripe, I don't care. Just, it's civics. You got to get out. You got to do it. You got to help make a difference in this world. Do your civic duty. Well, that's the end of the show. That is all I have for you this week. Thank you for tuning in and watching, and I hope you'll join me next time for November and beyond.